A Life Not Chosen by Boyd Campbell.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
Little boys like to play sports. It's how we form communities amongst us. In children, little birds age and younger, girls are doing the same. Millsaps College just added women's football. I'm not messing with them. Those girls look tough. I guess the cliche is baseball. Two popular boys become the captains, and the captains take turns picking their team. In my neighborhood, one captain might be Johnny Crows, and the other might be Stuart Speed. The captains would pick the best players first. As they winnowed out the best players and started to get down to the poor players, if there was an uneven number of boys, one boy just wouldn't get picked. That was usually me. My friends knew that I really sucked at baseball. Not getting picked for baseball was pretty predictable. The whole point of the thing was to win, and I couldn't help do that. Stuart was such a sweet guy. He'd say something like, "Boyd's hand-eye coordination hasn't developed yet. He can be the manager." My hand-eye coordination was fine. I could climb trees and ride horses, not including the times I fell off of or out of each. The problem was that just before I was born, my Uncle Boyd died. They named me for him. I was going to be John Allen. When Uncle Boyd died, Daddy's life and career exploded. He couldn't be little Jim anymore. He had to be, basically, my Uncle Boyd. He had his daddy to pull him along, but time became an issue. Time for little boys just wasn't to be had.
I swear to God, Boyd, if this is another pity party, I'm gonna...
It's not, I promise. Hear me out. There were pictures of Daddy coaching my brother's teams and teaching them to bat and catch, but none of that for me. Mama and Daddy never broke up or anything. He was just gone most of the time. The only time I ever had him was between 5 and 6 in the morning when I watched him shave and listened to the man on the radio talk about an imaginary pet named Feist Dog. I have to mention Feist Dog every few stories, or he gets sore. One of my readers asked if the little bird was imaginary, like Feist Dog. I assured her that Little Bird is real. She's also a lot less trouble than an imaginary dog that hounds me about working. The thing is, I didn't get to learn baseball, but I had a daddy who was catching the world on fire, and watching him do this taught me so much. Daddy and I eventually became friends when I began working for him. Everybody thought I was coasting and slacking because my dad was the boss, but he worked me pretty hard. He even gave me books to read on business, and I read them. The thing I learned is not to focus on what you don't have, but on what you do have. I sucked at baseball, but for a while, I was the strongest human being in Mississippi. A fair trade in my book. I also got to be my daddy's friend as an adult. That's better than baseball lessons when I was a boy. Nobody gets to get everything. I learned to be grateful for what I did get. I have a friend named Tim. Actually, at the time we called him Timmy, but he grew up and now it's Tim. I have a friend named Chip who keeps insisting people use his real name now that he's grown. I don't even know what it is. Well, I do, but I refuse to use it. Two things Tim and I had in common were that we both loved ocean science, and we especially loved space science. We built models of everything NASA ever made. We built and launched Estes model rockets. In the 5th grade, Coach Smith asked Timmy and me to bring our rockets to school so we could launch them on the St. Andrews football field. In the 5th grade, I was starting to notice girls, but not that day. There were rockets. I thought about Timmy during the Artemis launch today. The daughter of Zeus, Artemis, was the twin sister of Apollo. The main launch vehicle for the Apollo missions was the Saturn V, a rocket 2/3 as tall as the Washington Monument. Sometimes they project an image of the Saturn V onto the monument. I can't imagine how many lumens that projector must use. I bet it's more than one projector. That's like 5 movie screens. After Apollo, NASA started working on a new orbital lifting system. Converting Saturn V engines to use new fuel and combining them with solid fuel boosters, they developed the Space Launch System for the shuttle program. The Artemis launch today was a modified version of the SLS, designed to carry more fuel, since they were going many times further into space. Artemis really is the twin sister of Apollo. Timmy and I worked on building a launchable version of the Saturn V. If something went wrong with the engines, or if the chutes didn't deploy, then all our work would be destroyed. We launched several smaller rockets first, then the Saturn V for last. We had never launched it before. Coach Smith led the entire class in the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This was the largest rocket Timmy and I ever built. Just like the real Saturn V, it went up slowly. The compression charge ignited, splitting the rocket in two, each side having its own chute system. The model we spent so much time on floated safely to the ground to be launched again. The thing I didn't mention about Timmy was that he had very serious chronic childhood arthritis. He had a very painful life. Where I lived, the mayor was down the street and Timmy's family was down from him. After that were big plots of cleared land going toward the Pearl River, as everybody in Jackson tried to move somewhere close to Eastover. Timmy and I would launch rockets and fly kites in these cleared fields that would one day be houses. Sometimes his arthritis would get so bad that it was too painful for him to walk home, so I carried him. He didn't like for people to see me carrying him, so we went through the woods, an area we called Pony Hill. Brumday ended up buying Pony Hill and built the biggest house for just one guy you ever saw. Sometimes Timmy couldn't sleep at night because of the pain. I usually can't sleep at night either, but it's because I have ADHD and it doesn't turn off when the lights go out. Timmy's dad got him this thing that looked like an outboard motor that attached to the tub, turning it into a whirlpool like they used to treat soft tissue and muscle damage in athletes. When the pain got bad, I'd lift Timmy into his tub. The hot swirling water made him feel better. You see, I wasn't having a pity party. I couldn't play baseball. I couldn't read well. I couldn't talk well. And girls scared the key rap out of me. But I wasn't in pain all the time. When my mind was calm, I could sleep. Instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I focused on what I did have, which was a life without pain. I know you're going to worry about Timmy. As he got older and went through puberty, the arthritis got better. His family moved away, but his teenage years were just about normal. Because my voice isn't what it used to be, I use AI to generate the audio version of my stories. Since I often write in a foil to my inner voice, I wanted a voice separate from the author's voice. For the author's voice, I sampled Shelby Foote, William Winter, and a few others. For the voice of the foil, I wanted a young woman to make the contrast between the two imaginary voices greater. I didn't want to sample Little Bird because she'd be way too embarrassed, so I told the AI that I wanted someone about her age and about her size with a Southern accent. The first 3 versions were terrible. AI doesn't seem to get Southern accents, so I removed that parameter. The result is a pretty good approximation of the Little Bird if she lived in California and was a hell of a lot more sassy than she really is. My Chi Omega girls have had enough children to staff a Disney cruise. But Little Bird is different. She's my friend, my pal, and a member of my tribe. To be really close to me, a friend has to be another artist or at least live in those waters. I encourage Little Bird to be sassy to me. it's a sign of friendship. She's seen how I am with Brent and Sam. That's what I'm going for. If you dropped in on one of our collaborations, you would think Brent and I hated each other based on how we argue about color. That's the point, though. This is somebody who gets me well enough to argue with me about color. When Daddy died and Lance had a heart attack, I returned to Millsaps before going to California, which was the last thing Daddy and I talked about. I've always felt like the staff and faculty at Millsaps were like family, but returning that time, 4 faculty members distinguished themselves. The first 2 were Brent and Lance. Part of the love I had for these 2 was the love I had for collaborating with them as artists. I'd never allowed myself to do that before. Just turning 30, I was probably too late to ever realize my true potential as an artist, but that's talking about what I don't have, not what I do have. I always knew who Catherine Freiss was, mainly because I had a lot of admiration for the students she taught. The first time through, I was determined to absorb everything the Elsie School of Management had to offer, because Daddy wanted me to. Returning to Millsaps, I realized that Catherine was not only a member of my true tribe, but an elder. Much of art as we know it, the philosophy of art, particularly theatrical arts, came from the Greeks, and Catherine taught Greek. I wasn't yet ready to tell everybody in Jackson that I was a writer, or wanted to be, but I figured as long as I was at Millsaps, I might as well take advantage of the English and Literature department. This was about 3 years after Jackson started having topless bars. It was pretty controversial at the time. A lot of my straight friends, including the Thursday Night Boys Club, would sometimes end up at Tiffany's Cabaret. The girls would dance on stage for dollar bills, but how they made their money was through a table or lap dance. A few times a night, they would have a t-shirt dance, where you'd get a sofa dance and a t-shirt for $20. A sofa dance was pretty intimidating for Uncle Boyd. I was still pretty big at the time. The point of these dances was for the girl to rub up all over you for the duration of one song. Considering my size and theirs, climbing up on Uncle Boyd was kind of like the guys who climbed trees to trim them. Some of these girls were pretty muscular. It was like having an orangutan climb all over me. I met this one girl who was half Korean. Dark hair, dark eyes, yada yada, Uncle Boyd has a preference. Sue me. Somehow, we started talking. She called me Shakespeare. It's funny you say that. I'm working on being a writer.
It's funny you say that. I am too,
she said. I ended up coming back a few times to talk to her. Then we started having lunch together. She'd read me her poetry, and I'd read my essays. Eventually, somebody in the boys' club asked if I was dating a stripper. Kinda, I said. One night, they had a t-shirt dance, and one of my friends in the boys' club got a sofa dance from a ginormous blonde named Kathy. I'm pretty sure it wasn't her real name. My dating a stripper was one thing. I wasn't married. It did dawn on me that I was telling this girl more about my life than my own mother, but still, technically, I was in the good. I was single, and she was single. My friend with the gigantic blonde was not. My friend made a fatal error. He drove his wife's car that night. The next morning they switched back. When she got home from work, she asked him why her car smelled like a French whore and why there was a Tiffany's Cabaret t-shirt on the floor. Busted, he was grounded from boys' night for a while. Then he was divorced. Divorce is pretty rough on men. All their friends are still married. It's especially rough on guys who don't socialize very well. While I've been devoted to younger girls, I have a special affinity for older girls. There have been 2 great loves in my life. One is a year younger, and the other was 56 years older than me. I've decided to teach myself to paint likenesses because it frightens me. That's my new mantra. Do the things that frighten me. I want to do one more likeness painting. Then I have a photograph from the last time Fay Wray went to the top of the Empire State Building. I'd like to paint that. Maybe I could paint in a biplane flying in the distance through the window. For a while, I would have supper at the bar at Amerigo. Like me, Brumday was never married, so he'd sometimes eat there too. Rowan Taylor was Daddy's best friend. Recently divorced, he'd eat there with us. I liked older girls. They liked younger girls. I was in the unusual spot of having to claim dibs on girls at Amerigo, so my dad's two best friends wouldn't steal them. Like me, Rowan didn't socialize that well. Like me, he often spoke his mind when he shouldn't. I don't think he wanted to get divorced, but he lost the ability to maintain a relationship. Through that, he began to wander. A married fellow who wanders usually ends up divorced. There was a young woman who came to Mississippi to meet and study Eudora Welty. She ended up teaching at Millsaps. I knew that Suzanne Mars was dating Rowan, and I knew it was making a new man of him. Making my dad's friend happy after being so miserable while divorced meant quite a lot to me, on a deeply personal level. A brilliant teacher, I signed up to take Southern stories from her. We had not yet talked about me being a writer. As far as she knew, I was just hanging out in Jackson till I moved to Hollywood. Southern stories didn't include Eudora Welty, who was still alive. Her work was a course by itself. Because I loved Suzanne, I sat on the front row. Opening a copy of Flannery O'Connor's collected stories, I could hear the spine of the book snap. "God damn it," she said, meaning to whisper, I think. But she was genuinely annoyed. This was somebody who had a deep love for books beyond their capacity to hold words. Ignoring the rest of the class, we discussed the pros and cons of sewn and glued book spines. If her copy of O'Connor had been sewn, it would not have broken. In the days after Daddy's death, I lost my father, but I gained a friend with whom I could discuss the relative qualities of color in theatrical lighting, and another friend with whom I could discuss the differences in bookbinding. I lost, but I gained. I suppose that's the point of this story. Sometimes you're not chosen. Sometimes there's just no reason at all for somebody to choose you. If you focus on that, you'll spend your days feeling sorry for yourself. There are always things to offset not being chosen.
The Life of Boyd is a reader-supported publication. To receive new posts and support my work, consider becoming a free or paid subscriber.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Okay, we got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.